Beautiful family, I almost did not want to record, to be very honest, what I'm about to share with you. And this actually came through in a call with my private community, the deep dive, where I unveiled something that we had been working on, or what I personally had been seeding in my life for the last 7 years. And I always knew that this community was meant to live outside of a screen. And what we announced was something that goes far beyond that, bringing these experiences into the personal. But what ended up happening is I dug deeper into why I was doing this. I realized that there was a layer of my personal story, my heritage, past traumas and wounding that actually came through as to why I wanted to create this. And so I hesitated with sharing this because it's very deeply personal to me, to what actually got me here. And you guys know that I prefer to be on the other side of the screen, asking questions, not really talking about myself. But I feel like it's the time. And right now we are in a moment, a global moment, where we are meant to be gathering in pockets around the world and creating nodal points around the grid of Gaia to come together. And I've had glimpses of what the new earth feels like and looks like. And these visions that I've had are beginning to come into fruition. I'm starting to see it in my external world, find myself in positions where I can experience what the new earth is all about, but actually now having an opportunity to steward it with all of you. And so the following is an invitation. It's also a deeply, deeply personal story as to why I'm doing this in the first place. And I invite you to sit back like we're around a campfire and just tune in. This is also a beacon call for those that feel this internal guidance system telling them that they want to do more with the information that comes through, that they want to do more with what they know. They want to bring more of that feeling that they've cultivated within themselves and learn how to be a beacon into the real world and bring that out in a massive scale. And the only way we do that is by going within and working on ourselves and seeing other people that are here doing the same. And so I played a video for my community. It's called The Gathering of the Tribe. I'm not going to be able to play it here on YouTube for copyright purposes, but I will also drop a link and you can see it here, the thumbnail. Beautiful story as to really revealing why we're gathering at these times, why we're doing what we're doing. And so again, I'm here just very honestly bring something forward that I believe that the world needs. I believe that we have the opportunity to come together, and when we come together in coherence and in alignment, magic can ensue, magic can occur. And so thank you all for just taking the time out of your day to listen to this recording. And I'm sending you all my love, and I hope you enjoy and get excited as to what we're doing. This is really marking a new chapter for Just Tap In. I'm not going to say too much yet. It's all revealed in the video, but I will send you guys all the love, and I'll come back toward the end of the video and say a few more things. So much love.
Volunteers gathered in a circle, and the shaman went to each one. The last thing each was aware of was the shaman blowing smoke in his or her face. They entered a deep trance and dreamed themselves into the world where we find ourselves today. Here we are.
Yeah, here we are.
Here we are.
Here we are. Beautiful. Curious what came up for you guys, if you want to share it in the chat. I mean, the first time I listened to that or watched it, I was in tears. I think there is a deep ancestral remembering within me. Yeah, Pam is saying she's sobbing, full of tears, Karen. I feel that, and I also know that that is a huge driver to want to connect in these ways. And I'm noticing that the emergence of the new earth is actually a deep cry to get out of our loneliness. And that's something to be acknowledged. And the reason that we created this game for ourselves is so that we could find the others like us, the blueprints of those that are here for this great awakening. Because how many people right now are not on this call, just focusing on life going on, and maybe not even privy to that there is a huge transition of human consciousness that we're undergoing. And the reason we're here is to be beacons for that and voices for that. And Charles was telling me today that we're in dire need of more storytellers and people that can hold the story of the more beautiful world that our hearts knows is possible. And part of what I see wanting to emerge through myself and through so many other people I'm talking to is, what is that new story? What is the new story that we're creating? And I've had the privilege in the last week or 2 weeks, 3 weeks, since I landed here in Europe. My journey started in Portugal, where I was there with Rebecca. So many people gathered for this vision of the Fifth Empire, which is a prophecy that came through from the famous poet Fernando Pessoa. And we were imagining or reimagining what that new world looks like. And I realized the potency of getting together in this physical space and actually being able to see one another in the eyes and acknowledge that there is so much more than just meets a person when you can actually be in their energetic field. And then obviously many of you know that I was in Scotland for this crown chakra activation that brought together, I don't even know how many people there were, but in the hundreds, in the maybe potentially thousands that were there all together. And it was a very beautiful experience. So I did want to share a few things with you guys, because I know that there are certain experiences that come into our life that actually bring about new chapters for ourselves. And this is actually one of them for me that I just wanted to take a moment to share with you guys. So I had an epiphany and a convergence of a long time dream that I've had all in the same week. So this is an image that was generated through AI, but is very similar to what we lived through in Scotland. So, there weren't that many people, but there were a lot of us gathered. And here you could see me just in awe of everything that was unfolding, and also realizing that an event like this actually took place from the manifestation of just words, from many shared minds that were tuning into this potential, because it wasn't just about Robert, it wasn't just about Matthias, it wasn't just about myself. It was literally every single person that had this vision of us gathering for something bigger than ourselves. I noticed that there was this power and potency of us coming together in the same physical field. And I see a lot of people, some of you nodding, because maybe you fell into that. What is that feeling that when you're in a space and people are sharing an intention and you're bringing through these codes and you're feeling some type of way? What is that? And also I knew, and this was coming from literally, guys, like in the last 6 months, I had the epiphany. I'm like, this community was never meant to only live on a screen. And that's why I was reimagining and rethinking, where do we go from here? Knowing that even though it's so beautiful that we have the technology to be able to gather, there's probably people that are in 3 different time zones in this call. and we're able to do this. I'm in a whole different part of the world than many of you. Um, but then on the other hand, I'm realizing our roots, these roots of us being in communion, in tribe, sharing in ceremony, being with each other, witnessing each other, feeling together. That was something that I profoundly felt that I was in some sort of way lacking. And I didn't know how or when. It was more about a when than a how. And we've talked about it with Coco, my team. We're like, okay, so the when aspect of things to bring all of us together, or as many as we can, and create, let's say, vehicles for that to happen within our ecosystem. And so I knew, and so many of you, when I was in LA, and we did the deep dive reunion, so many of you were actually tuning into that same field of wanting to birth something through the community where we could be with each other in person and where we can gather in person. And that actually got me into deep visioning of what that looks like. And so I wanted to share, I don't know how deeply you guys know my personal story, or I know I've shared it here and there in little bits and pieces, but I was born in the US to Colombian parents. And I had the glimpse of my roots of Colombia because when I was 2 months old, we moved back to Colombia. And I grew up there until I was 4 years old. So Spanish was actually my first language. But right around when I was four, because of my dad's job, we ended up moving back first to Washington, D.C. And then I was around Texas. I was around California, Huntington Beach. And what ended up happening was my first day of school, I think it was like first or second grade, my parents just threw me onto the bus to go to school. And within a few hours, my mom received a call from the principal or someone in the administration of the school saying, like, you need to come pick up your son because he's crying uncontrollably. He doesn't understand our language and you need to come and get him. So this opened up for me this really deep sensation of feeling isolated and unheard. And my survival brain kicked in immediately. And I can actually remember it to this day of when I decided to literally turn completely and say, I am going to become like all the kids around me. If that's what I need to do to fit in, to be understood, then I'm going to become that which is around me. And so I became Americanized. I was literally just, I went into the culture. I completely isolated the fact that I was Colombian, that I had these roots that go very deep. If you guys know anything about Colombia, it's a very rich culture. But I ignored all of that. And so I became this version of myself that was watered down, that only spoke English. If you speak to my parents nowadays, they'll tell you that they tried to keep my Spanish alive, but I was just so blocked off to it that I would only respond to them in English. And I remember also being in Texas, and there was a moment where the bullying started because obviously I look different. My name is Hispanic. And so I was in a school that was predominantly white. And I just remember some of the kids coming up to me, especially the boys coming up to me and making fun of my name, making fun of the way that I looked, calling me a beaner, and like a lot of like racial slurs that started coming up. And it was a really interesting initiation that my soul chose to go through, because it was like I was living two lives. I would go back home and everything was Spanish, the food. And I know so many people that are immigrants or that have a double nationality can resonate with, but this was just my journey that I chose. And what ended up happening was I grew up in that culture. These aren't actually pictures of me, but I try to get it as close as to what actually was going on in my life as I could. I chose to go into the route of sports and fit in that way. So I became a basketball player, and that was my life. So I would be playing basketball during the day and be at the beach in the afternoons with my friends, the rest of the day. And I actually had dreams of playing professional basketball. Obviously, if you guys meet me, I'm 5'11". So that dream I could have started pushing to the side a little earlier, but I really had the deep desire to continue this route of basketball and being an athlete. And if you look to the right, that's supposed to be my dad, but he picked me up one day from school and he sat me down. My sister was actually in the car and she's 5 years younger than me, and she was bawling her eyes out and I couldn't understand why. And immediately I got the intuition, oh, there's some bad news here. There's some really bad news, because at that point I was around 16. We had already moved 4 times within the US, so I learned not to be attached to the places I was in. But at this time I was in California, and like, if I could speak for hours of my love for that state and everything that is and represents California, when I was living there, and who it shaped me to become. But one day my dad picks me up. I could tell there was no good news, and I just said, "What is it?" And he said, "We're leaving again." And I could just picture in my mind, like, all over again, the move, the losing of friendships, the needing to fit in a different place and adapt my personality to be accepted again. And then I asked him, where? Where are you taking me this time? And he says, we're going back to our home country, Colombia. He had a really great job offer that he couldn't turn down, and that required the whole family to move back. This was in my sophomore year of high school. And when I tell you guys I was torn, it was a really difficult time in my life. Like, I didn't tell my friends that I was moving until a week before the moving trucks were at my house. And I had to tell my parents had to sit me down with my friends and basically tell me, there's something that our son needs to tell you guys. And I was just bawling my eyes out. I just remember, like, no, like, I couldn't speak the words. I couldn't tell them that I was leaving. These were my brothers. Obviously, we were raised together. I was, when you play a sport, you become intimately close with your teammates, and you go essentially to the deepest of depths with them. You go through losses, you go through the highs of winning, and we had a really great team. So we had won the actual state championship that year. I was given an MVP award on that team. So I was in this like peak moment in my life. And then all of a sudden, all of that comes crashing down. And the moment he said Colombia, all the narratives of the reflections and mirrors that I had received about my country came like flooding through. So this is all I knew of Colombia. We would visit once a year, if most. Sometimes even once every 2 years, to see my grandparents, to see my cousins. But I would be called the gringo in the family because I barely spoke Spanish. My cousins would always make fun of me of the way I would pronounce words. And I didn't know much about the culture, and I was never curious enough to ask. And so this is all I knew about Colombia. This is all I knew. I knew about that there was decades of violence that my parents lived through. There was a lot of poverty. There was this guy with a mustache named Pablo Escobar, who was a drug lord and caused a lot of chaos in the country, a lot of division. When you would tell someone that, when people would find out I was Colombian, the first thing they would do is they would gesture with their hands and sniff, like, oh, so you're into cocaine a lot, right? And that was literally all the mirrors I would have about my country. And that it was this, third. I told my dad, he probably still has the text message. I texted him, I don't understand why you're taking me to a third world country. You're going to ruin my life. And I'm sure that was very hard for him to hear. I actually barely spoke to my dad for 4 months before we had to move. I shut down. I stopped caring about my grades because I'm like, why should I care about doing well in school if in 6 months my whole life is going to reset anyways? And I'm going to have no friends. No one in Colombia plays basketball. It's all football, right? Soccer. So my whole identity collapsed. And this is all I knew about where I was from. And it was really hard because that's a reflection that is still existing in many ways about certain countries, especially this one. Um, all of the violence that has come about that, all the entertainment that has come from the drug cartels, the what I call sexual tourism. If you go to Cartagena, many of the foreign people that are there for prostitution, for getting refined drugs, and all of these different things that you would think of as not the place you want to be. And it was also very hard for me because I'm still, sharing about myself publicly and understanding that, I don't want my image to be associated with this. And with Charles today, we were talking a lot about that civilization is actually made by mythology and stories. And if you want to change a civilization, you have to change the story. And so, if you guys know, every single person on my team that works, 5 days a week with me, we're all Colombian. And so we actually have been sitting together for the last few months asking the question, like, how do we leverage this platform to change stories around countries that have been seen in such a negative and dark light? And inevitably, there has been a lot of darkness ensued into these countries, also because of the perceptions that are placed upon them. And I didn't know where to start answering that question. This was actually, a depiction of what it was like when I actually got to Colombia. So I was 16 years old, had never tried a single drop of alcohol in my life. My whole life was about basketball, as I was telling you guys, and I felt completely disconnected. And the first day of school, it was a private school, very small. There's only 150 people in my grade, and people were just giving me the looks, right? Like, who is this new guy trying to figure me out? Is he Colombian? Is he American? Where do we place him? And so inevitably people started coming up to me and inviting me to the parties that they were having. And my perspective was just, hey, I'm going to go and try to fit in because I don't want to be miserable for the next 3 years of high school. And so obviously I get to these parties and these are 16-year-olds, 15-year-olds. There's not a single person that is sober at these parties. Everyone is, you know, embriagated. Is that the word? The technical term. And I sort of just fell into that because I didn't know any better of what else was there for me than to be like them and actually be accepted into the popular kids. Basketball kind of went out the window because no one played basketball. I still played because it was all that I knew. I wasn't going to start, using my feet all of a sudden where I had been, training and practicing for over a decade since I was super young. I wasn't going to change my sport, but it was very sad. I mean, it was like this completely different identity had to emerge from me. And you could tell, like in this symbolic image, I was really disconnected from everything. And this is, again, a version of Colombia that I was getting to know about. So my high school in Colombia overlooked this neighborhood that was a very, very poor neighborhood. And it was a very interesting paradox because I was sent to a private school where we had to dress super preppy, and all of the kids were coming from privileged families. So there was this dichotomy of like, we weren't even acknowledging this side of Colombia that was literally right in front of our eyes. And so I just felt very disconnected. Like me being a very sensitive being, I was completely, I didn't know how to let all this information in. So I kind of just shut down. I just stopped feeling. And I think that happens to a lot of us. We come to a moment in our life where it's so much stimulation, so much coming through that we just decide to stop feeling. And there was always that question in my mind because I was only in Colombia for about 3 years when I finished high school. And then immediately I went to Madrid to study abroad and to do my undergrad degree. And I always was left with this question of like, what really are my roots? Are these, is this my heritage? Is this supposed to be the deeper layer of my identity? Is this where I truly come from? This version of Colombia that I got to know, both personally and from the stories of the other people that were around me. Is this the Colombia that is part of who I am? Am I just supposed to, come to terms with that? And I started digging. As you all know, I'm quite a researcher. I like to go deep, and I started finding that Colombia has so much more to offer. Not only do we hold 10% of all of the biodiversity on the planet, the lungs of the planet, the Amazon rainforest, we have these very ancient indigenous cultures that still hold the memory of who humanity was before the fall of consciousness. And there are people, indigenous people, that never forgot. And they carry these stories. If you guys know about the Kogis, they are this culture that they train their shamans in the darkness for the first 7 years of their life to understand the spirit world. And I was in awe because I was like, this is the Colombia that I was never taught about. There's this whole like magical aspect of the roots of this country that I didn't know about, that I was oblivious to. And so I started opening myself to that. And it was like, for the first time, I felt proud to say that I was Colombian. And so these were the questions that I was making to myself. Like, when I had the spiritual awakening in Madrid, and for many of us, the first questions that we have are, who am I? Where do I come from? What lives within my lineage? And what have I forgotten about who I am and where I come from? And I had this whole like rich history of my culture, of Colombia, that all I knew was one facet of it, one polarity of it, that I was starting to open up to, okay, there's also so much more. And it's a passion of mine now, actually, to share this aspect of Colombia with people that I meet on the streets. As soon as I get the either Pablo Escobar reference, the cocaine reference, I immediately go, yes, but let me tell you about this other side that you weren't told about, because we know that a lot of society wants to hide the magic that is available to all of us. Colombia holds very deep codes of magic that is a very deep nodal point for where humanity is headed. And a lot of places like this in Peru and Argentina are also very similar. But it's also become a passion of mine to, in a way, help change the narrative and help change the story. So there was this whole aspect, as I was telling you guys, of this Colombia that I never knew was real, that never existed. When we were in 10th grade, my school had this thing called Classroom Without Walls, where we would be taken to a certain pocket of Colombia, almost in like a school field trip. And the first one I was taken to, because I missed so many, I got there late. I got there already in sophomore year, but the first one I was taken to was in this place called the Lost City, Ciudad Perdida. And so this was just the tip of the iceberg for me, because for 5 days we hiked up the Sierra Nevada mountains, and we get to this place. It's actually in the image. It looks very similar to this. It's like a Machu Picchu per se. It's literally the land. There we are. Thank you, Coco. Um, and this is called the Sierra Nevada of Santa Marta in Colombia. I don't know if any of you have been there, if you've heard of it, but after this experience, my family and I, we go back to this place once a year. I've spent countless New Year's. I've spent literally times of isolation in this land. I spent my first mushroom ceremony in this land that really opened me up into the other dimensions and who I really am existing in these other realms. And so it's a part of the world that I hold very, very close to my heart. And there's still so much more I want to deepen in this land. And I know that as part of my soul blueprint is to do more here. And I'm slowly starting to realize what that is. There's this whole aspect of the guardians, the Kogis, that actually they're the guardians of the Sierra Nevada. They call us their little brothers. They're the older brothers. They're the hermanos mayores. And I know of a lot of people that have actually spent time with the Kogis, and what I've heard from them and the stories that they have and the information, the codes that they still hold for the earth runs very, very deep. I'll just give you guys an example. A friend of mine, his name is Daniel. He was the first Latin American Wim Hof instructor. For those of you that are into ice baths and that type of thing, he was the first. I'm seeing some heads nodding. No ice baths, no ice baths. But he was the first. He was the first one that actually brought that medicine over to Colombia in that sense. And his mission was, I'm going to go to the indigenous people and I'm going to bring this medicine of the ice to them. And they're going to learn about the ice. And he wanted to preach to all of them. And as soon as he gets there, they look at him like, bro, this is a technology we've been using for tens of thousands of years. They have specific lagoons that are associated with different emotions. And so when one of them goes into an initiation in one of the lagoons, they're in a sense literally bathed in that emotion so that they can come out of the lagoon washed and cleansed from whatever they were feeling. So they have a lagoon of anger, they have a lagoon of grief, and it's very cold, I'm told. So they've been using this technology for so many years. Also, he spent a night with them, and this is the men in the tribe. They spent the nights outside around a fire. So the sacred fire, they hold space for a certain group. I think it's the ones that have more of a voice within the tribe, and they sit around the fire and they don't say a single word. And he was invited to sit with them. And all of a sudden, he was telling me this story, and I totally believe him because I have also seen some crazy stuff. And, for those of you that have followed the podcast, we go into some crazy territory. So it's really hard to surprise me nowadays. But he was telling me how they're sitting in sacred circle, and a few hours go by, and all of a sudden they're all laughing. They're all nodding in unison without exchanging a single word. And so he was telling me that he started going in and training into that field that they were collectively creating. and he started receiving the thoughts from the different elders that were in the circle. So they were telepathically exchanging information without the need for language. And this is without any plant medicine. And so they have abilities, they have information and codes that I know, for example, the Colombian government, kind of leaves them do their thing, but they are completely separated from society. Um, Now they're coming more into communion because they know that their little brothers, us, need help and need guidance. So in a sense, they're guarding this ancestral memory because right now we're opening ourselves up to listening to them. But it all starts with listening. I was also mentioning before how this magic of, like, it's one of the most biodiverse countries in the world. Santa Marta in specific, you can be in the jungle, you can be on the beach, and you can be through rivers, tubing through rivers, seeing these types of animals, guacamayas, we call them. This animal here, right here, you see all species of birds. People go bird watching from literally. I've met people hiking that come all the way from Europe to just bird watch in Colombia. So it sounds like I'm doing a very incredible pitch of Colombia, but I promise you guys, um, I'm saying this from a place of, this is what I found out about my roots that I had previously not known about, and is actually a very deep part of my spiritual journey. Um, I spent some time in Medellin last year around this time, and they have this neighborhood um, that they completely transformed into art. It's a neighborhood that was filled with violence. Many shootings took place in that neighborhood, and when you go now, all the artwork, the graffiti, it literally looks like this, like all the color in a place that held so much hatred, so much rage, so much oppression. I don't know how they did it, but they transmuted it into beauty, and that inspires me, and it actually encourages me to share more of that with people, even in my own personal life. How can I transmute my own pain into beauty? The podcast that I do, this community that we have, is in large part because of the pain that I went through growing up in this isolation, in this bullying, in this not knowing about my heritage, not knowing about my roots. And I'm sure many of you can attest to what that feels like. The Kogis, they call this the center in the world, the heart of the world, el corazón del mundo. Many traditions, they understand that this is a key, what we would call a nodal point in the Earth's grid, in the ley lines, that is very energetically activating. And you guys might know, if a culture or if a regime wants to hide something, then they'll layer it with all of these narratives and this history, so that the true gold, the true magic, can't be found. And I feel like that's what's happened with Colombia, in my personal opinion. And so I've come to this place time and time again. It's who I am. It's where I'm from. And it's cracked me open every time I go. I was just there a month and a half ago. I took my girlfriend, Hannah. I'm like, every person that I meet that actually I care a lot about, I take them here. It's like a pilgrimage. I'm like, you need to come get to know this land because it is pure magic. And every person I've taken leaves with a feeling of that magic as well. And so something that I've tuned in very deeply with all of you is that I wanted to bring through this beacon today with all of you, to gather in my roots, with all of you that can make it, that feel the call. This is a beacon, to gather all of us. So many of you have actually messaged me or told me this in person, like, when are we going to do something in the physical world? And this is sort of my response to that. So what we're doing is we're launching our first ever in-person excursion in the heart of the world in the Sierra Nevada of Colombia. This is the first time I'm ever doing anything like this. Receiving a lot of help as well. This is the name that came through for me was Raíz Futura. It's in Spanish. Raíz means roots. So it's an acknowledgement of where we've come from as a humanity, as a tribe. And futura, as you could probably imagine, means future. And so, in order for the birth of this new earth to happen, I know that we have to look into our roots. We have to look at where we come from. We have to listen to the indigenous people that have been here much longer than the modernized human has been. And we believe that we know more or we know better. But actually, there's this wisdom that is still held in this land that if we want to transition into this new world, we have to acknowledge the not just the future, not just focus on the predictions, not just focus on what's coming, but knowing where we came from. And that's actually an archetype of my personal journey that I've glimpsed at, throughout this whole conversation with all of you today. Is this is this is what I had to go through. I had to remember my roots. I had to actually go there to these places. I had to sit with the medicine of these places that these places had to offer. And I still don't feel like I've scratched the surface with the magic that these roots hold for me. And also not just the roots of Colombia, but many of you know I've been in recent months in Peru. I've been in Egypt. I've been to these ancestral lands that I know hold so much for us. And a lot of it isn't something that I can tell you about in knowledge or through any teaching. It's a state of being. It's a presence. It's an embodiment, and it's shaped who I am. And so this is something that we're opening up as the first ever for this community. These will be the dates that will be taking place in August, the last day of August up until the first week of September. There's a lot of experiences that we have in the works right now for all of you. Again, this is the first of many. This is something that with my team, we've been like really, really excited about. There's this digital experience that we're working on refining and making more soulful and bringing those conversations into the digital space that can go deeper. But also there's this avenue of in-person gatherings, as the gathering of the tribe was saying. Like, if we want to see the emergence of these new worlds, it's going to come from pockets of so many of us coming together. And I know many of you can probably attest to these experiences that you've gone to or have attended or have been a part of in your own way, or have led as experienced leaders in your own way, that what that energy brings. I'm excited to bring my own, let's say, flavor into that, because I've been on so many other people's journeys and experiences, have seen, how I would do it differently. And then this really gives me the opportunity as well to co-create in such a different way. So we're bringing in things like the ceremonies with the elders that we were talking to you about. The Kogis themselves, they're open and available to speaking with us, and we've made that contact with them, and we have someone that's going to accompany us on the journey that has lived with them. A lot of the things that I want to bring through in these in-person gatherings is to have dialogues and workshops around what the new earth feels like, looks like. So many of you also come with your own visions of the future that I feel like when we can hear each other, there's dots that can connect. A lot of practices to come into our body, come back into the land, remember the elements, There will be the offering of getting into the ice, getting into the fire, into the heat through Temazcal ceremonies. Um, my journey actually started with ice baths. So it's an experience that, for those of you that are open, I'm excited to share. I can still see some nodding heads. It's an initiation. It's an initiation for sure. Um, Co-creating what that future human is like, going into nature, getting to know all the magic that the land offers. And I think most importantly for me is when I go on these excursions, when I go on these journeys, I remember the divine child within myself. I remember that there are codes like imagination, like play, like trust and surrender that I feel like I can let free in these spaces. It's a really really beautiful opportunity to be in trust, you know, and just knowing that there are others that also want to play in the playground of life with you, in the lila. And so we've partnered with a very beautiful space called Gitana del Mar. They specialize in hosting these types of experiences for people, and holding ceremony. It's right on the cusp of the jungle, the ocean, and then there's a river, not even a 15-minute drive that runs through that is, you know, very, very, let's say, biodiverse. Um, as you can see, the Kogis, they do come. We actually have a person that will be accompanying us on the journey that actually has personal relations to them, and he's bringing his friends from the Kogi tribe to lead a few things that I can't say too much about yet. But these are some of the people that will be there. I will be there, of course, with all of you. Hannah, my beautiful partner, my girlfriend, she there's so much I could say. Actually, I think she's on this call. Hannah, I'm gonna put her on the spot, guys. Hannah, where are you at? I think she's being shy today, guys. Um, she'll be there with us, leading somatic practices, embodiment workshops. She's a poet at heart, so we're going to be creating a lot of art as a group as well. Daniel, I told you guys about him in the beginning. He was the shaman of the ice that spent some time with the elders and has sat with them many many times. And he is one of the people that I know that holds the most light, and Hannah as well. I actually told this to someone the other day. I'm like, I feel so fortunate that the first time I'm ever doing this, it's with two of the people in my life that I know hold the most amount of light. And I don't know how else to explain that. I don't know how else to describe that, but they are truly masters in my eyes. And being able to lead this for the first time alongside them is really special. Obviously, Coco will be there. Nico will be there. Um, we're just going to have a lot of fun, to be honest. The Kogis are actually invited to two of the days that will be there. One is an opening ceremony that they'll bring their ways of opening us up to the land, because they've been guardians of this land for over 26,000 years. But we're also going to do something very special, which is a restoration of the heart of the world together. And this is something that we're thinking about also live streaming for all of us to just tune in and join. So there's a mission aspect of this as well. There's a planetary assignment that I feel called to go to this land and do something with the elders, with the Kogis, that has to do with the heart. And I don't know what that looks like fully. I can't speak into it from an intellectual point of view, but I can feel into the power and the potency that it's going to come about, this restoration. And I don't want to call it an activation. It's not a heart chakra. It's not any of that stuff. It's just align humans coming together to pray collectively, to be in ceremony together, and to remind ourselves that we are one heart, one mind, one planet, and we're all heading into one future together. And so, since this is the first time we're doing anything like this, we're keeping it pretty intimate for the first gathering. I can see myself, and I've seen visions of us gathering in masses, sort of like what happened and unfolded in Scotland. And that is something that I'm tuning into very, vividly in the last few weeks, especially after that experience. But this is something that we're opening up to 25. We felt was the magic number, and also what the space could fit at this time. But also knowing that this is, again, just the first of many experiences that we're going to do. So I also wanted to share it with you guys in this format because our community will always receive the first access to any of these experiences. I wanted to also just take a moment to honor those of you that have been a part of this deep dive and have been part of the transmissions and the live ceremonies that we've held for now almost a year since we actually started this. And so this is something that we wanted to offer first and foremost before we open it up to the wider community. We wanted to give, this week or so, these first 7 days, to the people that have been part of this community to be part of this. If it's something that is aligned for you at this time. So we have these applications because we also want to take the moment to curate a really powerful group of aligned people that really feel the call to be there. We know that the work that we do in these spaces, when I've done it in the past, is very deep work. It's also playful work, but it's deep work. And so we also wanted to ask a few questions of those that feel this call to share with us, where they're at in their journey, what they're looking for, so that we feel that what we're offering and what we're co-creating is aligned and is for that individual person. So it's going to be very, manual. Like, we're going to look through all of these applications in the next days to come. And also, lastly, I did want to mention that, to all of you that have been part of this community, there is 10% preferred pricing on the experience and on this first retreat that we're doing. And so I'm excited. You could tell I've been really almost in like a reserved hermit mode because not only is this coming through, but something else is coming through for the community that we're also getting ready to announce in the next few months or so. But this was the first sort of huge project that we've poured our heart and soul. I was in Gitana del Mar, the space, just about a month and a half ago. And the moment I said hello to the receptionist, I'm like, we're doing this here. It was like an energetic thing. And yeah, so I just wanted to take a moment. I also want to be respectful with everyone's time today. I know Coco will be putting in the link to where the application is going. If you can help me out with that, brother. So that'll come through in the chat, but we'll also make an announcement on the deep dive in just a few minutes after the call ends. But I also wanted to open it up to hear from all of you, because I know that this creation is actually not something that comes from force in any way. This is something that I've heard from all of you, and not all of you, but some of you that have come to ask me about this idea and have actually contributed your own way into the brainstorming process. So I did want to hear from any of you that feel called to ask any sort of question or Well, there it is, family. Raíz Futura. And I just wanted to bring forward how special this is for me, because as you guys have seen, Colombia is a place that carries so much magic in the world. And I feel like it is our responsibility, from where we come from, our backgrounds, to change the narrative around these places, change the story. And also doing that with coherent, beautiful human beings and souls that are ready. So as I said in the beginning, this is a beacon call. Applications are now open. My community got first access. They've already signed up a few of them. And so I know this will fill up very fast. What I recommend is that you fill out the application, even if the timing or whatever purpose, whatever reason, it is not aligned at this time. I have a very strong sensation in my body that this is the first of many experiences and excursions into beautiful, magical places around the world. So you can still apply. You can put down your name, and that will ensure that we know that you are the first person that we should go to in our next experiences. And it's more than just an experience. This is, for me, an initiation personally, because I know that I am meant to be doing a lot more than interviewing, and I appreciate all of you holding space for that evolution. But not only that, it is special because the spaces that I know that we can create together are special and are beautiful. And this is a call. Whatever your heart is telling you right now, listen to that. And we will be reviewing these applications in the next days to come. And we will let you all know. And we have the assembled group of humans that will accompany us to La Sierra Nevada de Santa Marta, Colombia, this August 31st to the 6th of September. And very much looking forward to this next chapter with all of you. Thank you for supporting this platform. Thank you for supporting the interviews that we do. All of you that leave comments, share, like, I see that. I can't get back to everyone, but I see that. And if you're here, I know that we're always sending out a beacon call to bring in the right humans to these types of conversations. So thank you for being here. Thank you for being part of this community. Love you all so much, and hope to see you in Colombia.